Well, good people on the recovery journey, it is a joy to be walking with you on that road of recovery. As we said, some of you have been on that road of recovery for a long time, and some of you are newer to the road. And yeah, we just want to walk this road of freedom together, and encouraging one another, being each other's wingmen, watching each other's back, and progressing along. This particular talk, which I've named Rewired Part 2, it follows up on the last talk. Yeah, so we had this complicated long talk on the neuroscience and plasticity, and today Rewired Part 2, as God has made possible, grasping the implications of neuroscience on addiction recovery. The implications means, because of what we know about how the brain works, what do we need to do in recovery? And so you can see there the heading at the top, the kind of introductory statement: the greater your understanding of the blessing of God's design of the human brain, neurological pathways, the hijacking of the reward system, neuroplasticity, the more you understand all these things, the greater your chance of gaining freedom as God intended. Now, I'm not saying that the most important thing is understand neuroscience. I think the most important thing is understanding God's word and understanding, recovery process and steps and those kind of things. But supplementing your recovery work with a good understanding, and hopefully, last week gave you a good foundation for that. And so today I want to look at, okay, what are the implications of understanding neuroscience, just the neurology of the brain, and just what's going on there, and how that will help us in our recovery. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to refer a little bit to the two anchoring scripture passages that I just passed over last week. This will not be this is only a cursory or a surface overview, not an expositional understanding of the passage, but these are the two passages I referred to last time, and I want to read it through and just make comment. So if you have it there, I'm going to read the Psalm 119, 1 to 18. Lord, you have searched me and you know me. Implication: God knows what's going on inside, even though we might fool others. He knows the whole story. You know when I sit, you know when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. He knows all that's going on in our head, even though we have the outside fooled to other people. He knows what's going on. You discern my going out and my lying down. You're familiar with all my ways. Nothing's done in secret with the Lord. Nothing's done in secret. He knows what's going on. He knows, all the looking back embarrassing moments. And matter of fact, before a word is on your tongue, Lord, you know it completely. So he knows what you're going to say before you say it. Then there's this beautiful understanding of you hem me in, behind and before me. That means God is walking with me. Hem me in is like, you're here, and God's on either side walking with you. He's with you wherever you go. And you lay your hand on me. Just last night, my wife and I were out for dinner with good friends that go right back to before I was married. This gentleman and I were in college together, and we just spent an evening with them, and they're going through some real hardships with health issues. And we went into the parking lot of the Keg, and I went to close our time. I said, "Come here, I want to pray for you guys." And I put my hand on them. See, putting your hand on somebody is, I'm connecting. I got my hand on you. I'm here for you. And not only does God hem you in, but he lays his hand on you in, I'm connecting. I'm behind you. I'm with you. And so, when the psalmist says it in number 6, he says, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. Well, it's wonderful if you're wanting to track with him. It's scary if you're not walking with him, because he's right there. He knows what you're doing. He knows what you're thinking. He knows it all. But when you know that God's really with you, he knows your battle, and he hasn't rejected you. He wants to work with you. And such knowledge is, it says, too lofty to attain. And so he says, where can I go from your spirit? The psalmist says, where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, or if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me, and your right hand will hold me fast. Oh my goodness. It doesn't matter how far you think you've wandered. It doesn't matter how bad you think that you've gotten. It doesn't matter where you go on this whole earth. Even there, God is there. Come on, this is the way to go. Let me help you out of this. And your right hand will hold me fast. Got his arm around you. Come on. I know you're a wounded warrior. Come on, I got you. Yeah. Sometimes you say, surely the darkness will hide me and the light will become night around me. I've made poor choices and it looks really bad. Even the darkness will not be dark to you. No matter how dark your choices have taken you and how far you feel distant from God and people, and how you regret so many of the things, you just feel shrouded in darkness. The light become night around me, hoping that God won't see and understand, or just I'm so alone in such despair. Even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is his light to you. Nothing is hidden from him. Nothing is hidden from him. He is there in the darkness. He's not thrown back. He's not tripping up over it. And then it goes on to talk about the beauty of his creation in you. For you, God created my innermost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. That's the unique DNA of who you are. God knew who you'd be, how you'd operate. He knew your characteristics. He knew just everything about your life. I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Every system of your body, digestive system, the whole breathing system, the whole nervous system, the neurology of the brain, just every system is you're fearfully and wonderfully made. And I know it full well. He says, I'm fully aware. And he says, my frame, that's my body, my life, was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, basically right from conception. God knew, the night that your mom and dad were intimate and you were conceived, he was aware from the moment of conception, when you were woven together in the depths of the earth. As a matter of fact, that's in the womb. Your eyes saw my unformed body, and all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one day come to be. God knew the end from the beginning of your life. He knew it. He knows that you're on this call today. He knew that you'd be on this call. He knows about your addiction journey. He knows that you're 300 days along, or that you're 10 days along. He knows how you're feeling today. And how precious are your thoughts, oh God, how vast is the sum of them. Basically, God is thinking about me a lot. He's aware of my world. Were I to try to count all these thoughts, they would outnumber the grains of sand. And when I awake, I'm still with you. You're still there. It's a beautiful gift to have God with us, knows all, with us in our darkness, through it all. And you can count on the fact that he is there and faithful, and he knows the end from the beginning. And you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that's the brain. And then, of course, the beautiful passage in Romans 12, I also referred to last week. Therefore, brothers, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, basically fully surrender your life to God, holy and pleasing to him. This is your true and proper worship. If you want to worship him with your life, you just basically say, yes, God, I want to surrender to you. And do not conform any longer to the pattern of your addiction. Do not, conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Be transformed by the overhauling of God invading your mental processes, your neurological pathways, that God would just renew your mind. Thank God for plasticity, because your brain can be retrained. It's a beautiful thing. Don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve. God, what's your will? I've got it. This is what you want, God, isn't it? Yes, it's a good, a pleasing, and perfect will. God's plan for you, God's plan for us all in recovery is such a good, pleasing, and perfect thing. So God's transformation of your life, what he's interested in doing, is an unbelievably beautiful thing. Unbelievably beautiful thing. And I have to confess, there are scores of more scripture that talk about renewing of the mind, and the fact that God, created us and understands that we're unbelievable creations, and that he wants the best for us. And so this is a rather skipping on the highlights of some of the implications of neuroscience, God's design of my recovery. And so following up on Rewired, understanding the connection between neuroscience and your recovery, with the understanding from last talk, I want to now look at some of the implications of that neuroscience, and it should go, oh yeah, that makes sense now why that's hard, or this makes sense now why it's whatever. So these are my best thoughts as to implications, I mean, I didn't go to research on this. I just said, okay, now that I understand neuroscience, how the brain operates, I guess you'd say as well as I think I do. I'm not an expert, but at least this much. I know a lot more about recovery plans, and I know a lot about helping people get there. These are the implications that come flooding out. And I apologize. They just kept coming. So I think I got 18 different implications. And so let's just walk through this. The transformation comes when I really surrender to the Lord, to invite the Lord into every part of the battle, by putting him in your life, making him captain of the ship, making him, sit in the driver's seat. He calls the shots, and you'll make it if you keep a soft heart towards the Lord. Give your life to him, surrender your life to him. And some of you don't have a faith background yet, and we're happy that you're here and growing with us. But I can't argue without saying, the sooner that you say, okay, God, if there's something to what these men are saying about trusting my life to you, I want to do that. I want you to be my Lord, my Savior. I want to surrender my life to you. And gentlemen, though I am very imperfect, this has been my heart's desire since about 11th grade, that I would just live fully surrendered to Jesus. 11th grade, that's a long time, guys. But there's nothing better in life to say, just live surrendered to Jesus. Jesus, I give you my life. And that's the heart of all of life. Now, number two implication is create roadblocks. If you have strong neurological pathways connected to the PMO cycle, that is like your superhighway of the brain, the default where your mind wants to go with your addictive thinking, then you do need to create roadblocks, which is, don't go here, you can't go here. That's why software is important. That's why you have, I just can't repeat it, because even if there's gaps between, now gaps are important, without a relapse, those gaps are important. They need to get farther and farther apart. But it's critical that you stop acting out with the PMO cycle or whatever, because relapses keep the addiction alive. And so roadblocks, have to be in place. And you know, there may be a time that you decide that you don't need covenant eyes or equivalent. There's maybe a time that you feel you've done the 12-step program. You don't need to you know, to be involved in regroup. You know, you're a year clean and you've kind of hit all the requirements that we talked about for finishing up regroup. But you have to get to a place where the roadblocks become norm, and there's just a bypass, and now you're going in a whole new direction. So you got to create roadblocks, especially at first in your recovery. And at first, you need a cold turkey plan, because no different than a drug addiction where a person, you know, cold turkey, they're sweating and they're just, you know, flailing and ranting and maybe mentally incoherent and, you know, just whatever. You have to decide, how am I going to face the pain and withdrawal? What are the steps you're going to take? What are the activities you're going to do? What are the phone calls I'm going to make? And who are my solid wingmen that I'm going to reach out to? You know, usually when people are going through cold turkey and drugs, they're not left alone. Usually there's someone there walking through it with them. And you need to have a cold turkey plan when you're coming out of the addiction, because there's going to be that physiological battle, because your body will crave acting out, just like your physical body would crave the drug that you grew dependent on. Fourthly, prepare for battle. The greater the repetition, the stronger the path. That's the neurological pathways. And so, you know, a person who, you know, struggled with looking at porn somewhat in high school, you know, once or twice a week, you know, and it went on for a while till college, and then they got married, and then it's kind of relapse here and there. That's different, of course, than a person who not only was looking at porn maybe more frequently, but started to act outside the, you know, wise boundaries before marriage, and then acting outside after marriage. And so the longer and deeper the addictive pattern, obviously there's a sentence that isn't finished there, the greater and deeper the recovery needs to be, because of the nature of the addiction. And it's, you know, you got to stay the course. It's a battle. It's not just, you know, it's not just, okay, I'll do this for a few months and I'll be good to go. No, it's not that way. Renew your mind. Now, we know that renewing your mind is a biblical phrase too. I am including the biblical, but I want to attack something called stinking thinking. You see, you need to commit to a new way of thinking about your addiction, because you got to own the fact that the addict's mind is based on non-truth. How you look at your addiction is often twisted and destructive, and you cannot okay this faulty addict brain thinking anymore. You know, because there's just, this is the way it is. This is how life works. This is, you know, and there's this sense that a person for a long time has normalized the addiction, or justified it, or minimized, or walked in shame and isolation and privacy. But you know, whether it's okaying it or succumbing to it, like there's nothing I can do, I'm just screwed, I'm stuck here. So whether it's a failure syndrome or an okay syndrome, those things have to change. And so it's not renewing your mind in this case in the biblical sense. That will come later and clearer. This is actually accepting that your addict thinking is off, and you need to renew your mind. Clearly, you got to go public, and I don't mean, you know, tell the world. I mean, remember, the opposite of addiction is connection, and don't fool yourself. You need others. The longer we've got an addiction, the more we've got less and less people who know our inner world. And the more freedom we gain, the more we can open up and talk to anybody. There are good men here leaders here that have actually spoke publicly about their addiction in their churches. Why? Because they are not afraid to talk about the freedom they've gained. They're not afraid to talk about the history they've had, and they believe that God doesn't waste pain. And so for you, stay consistent in your small group to open up your stuff and to talk about the hard things. And recently, a man in a group that I'm connected with had a really tough week, and he reached out on a couple of occasions, and 3 or 4 of us just interacted with him and gave him encouragement and challenges. And that young man is brilliant, because he recognized that he's tired, and he recognized that, he's pressured, and he just feels overwhelmed, and he didn't stay secretive about that. He opened up, and the team, the wingmen, could encourage him. So go public. That's getting a good accountability partner. Repeat new pathways. Okay, so stopping old patterns and habits is only part of the battle. There needs to be this steady and consistent behavioral and cognitive change that has to be replicated. We're creating new pathways. And so whether it's finishing the 12th step and being consistent with the once a month Saturday morning group with that's talking about recovery, to get the 12 steps done, but new pathways, healthy habits, we'll come back to that, but these need to be steady and consistent, and then new neurological pathways are formed with the repeating of behaviors, thoughts, and actions. Number 8, important to target why. Create your list of reasons why you want to quit and review it often. Men who work with me, I get them to write out their reasons. And then my challenge is that for the first 3 weeks that they read it every day. And then after that, read it once a week, and then keep it close to them, that have it on their phone or tuck it in their Bible or whatever. Because I need to know why I want freedom. It gives me the motivation. I need to get the why figured out. Number 9, neurologically, and we've talked about emotional adolescence before, and you can go to an entire talk about understanding emotional adolescence, but don't be surprised if immaturity reigns. When you're coming out of your addiction, sometimes you'll have this angry little child inside that reacts. And sometimes it's pouting, it's blaming, it's anger, it's frustrations, and these kind of things aren't uncommon. And when you see these behaviors, yes, people can have those behaviors without being addicted, right? I could blame, pout, whine, whatever. But almost consistently, people coming out of addiction will have emotional relapses into this kind of immature reaction. And that's the adolescent speaking. That's the immature you speaking, the you that is going, poor me, this is so hard, and if my wife this or whatever, we have all these immature rationalizations that somehow get expressed, and are the extent of our selfishness and our addictive mindset. The scope is massive. So there'll be times that immaturity reigns. You're gonna have to be aware of that. I remember when I first heard about positive addictions, it was when I was doing my master's degree, and it was actually William Glasser was the psychological theorist, the therapist, counselor, educator. Glasser was the one that said, we need to develop positive addictions in our life. And those could be with, I'm addicted to eating healthy, maybe. I'm addicted to being in my Bible every day. I'm addicted to some kind of, regular half hour of exercise 3 or 4 times a week. But there needs to be positive things that as you get addicted to them, you can build your life around. It's good activities that'll build your life, not destroy it. And the danger with some people in the addiction journey, they end up, maybe stopping the one addiction, i.e., okay, I'm not going to look at porn now, but they get into another one. They start unhealthy eating habits. And so when they have these emotional triggers going on inside and the soul wounds haven't been dealt with, they maybe not relapse in porn and masturbation, but they start unhealthy eating and they're putting on weight, and or they're unhealthy drinking, alcohol issues, or they go into gaming or gambling, or they just some kind of distraction. And it doesn't mean that playing a game of cards is a problem. It has to do with the addictive nature of it. There's a lot of people that have gone from porn addiction to gaming, and they're still a vacant lot. They're not dealing with their stuff. And so really be careful that you're aware of the changing of one addiction to another. So get positive addictions. The next one here is when we looked at the neurology of the brain, we could see that when the reward system kicked in place, it affected emotions, it affected thinking, it affected behavior, and then the likelihood of reoccurrence. It affected memory, and so it was the dopamine is released to at least 4 of those regions we talked about last week, and it kind of is all encompassing. And so there needs to be a comprehensive renewal. It's far more than just stop doing that. It's behavior, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual changes that need to be part of the complete process. And so what am I doing spiritually to overcome the addiction? What am I doing cognitively, mentally? What am I doing emotionally? And because each of those centers of the brain have been wired to the PMO cycle and the addiction reward center, and they have to be all refired in a healthy way. So there needs to be a comprehensive renewal, not just a cognitive one or a behavioral. Stop doing that. And repeatedly, this idea of soul wounds. What are the roots that you need relief for? What is the baggage that's there? What are the inner battles, the lies that you believe about you? What made you vulnerable in the first place back in junior high? And often that baggage needs to be dealt with. Those soul wounds or soul pain. And again, we've done a whole talk on that. So if you're newer to the group, you can go back and look at soul pain or soul wounds as one of the talks, and recognize that there's a history that makes me liable, more likely to go to my addiction, that needs to be resolved so I can be a healthy person. Emotional triggers. What are your liability emotions? I know one good man that I've worked with for a long time, and I love the journey he's on. His key emotion is rejection, and usually it's when he's feeling a rejection from his spouse. That's his trigger emotion. So you got to understand, when you face some kind of discomfort, some kind of frustration, some kind of emotional disposition, you'll have to really work to understand which are the liability emotions that I face, that when, like some guys it's lonely, some guys it's boredom, sometimes it's frustrations, maybe at work or with family or whatever. But you need to know these and be aware of these, because these emotions are entry gates to relapses. So dear friend, he has this fight with his wife, and she says some really harsh things to him, and basically, calls him down and just carte blanche rejects him, and get out of here, and I don't want to see you, you make me sick. And that rejection, if he doesn't reach out to one of us wingmen and stuff, he's liable to relapse. And he's such a great guy. but he's got to know that his emotional trigger is the word rejection. And you got to discover it. What is your trigger? You know, and some guys' trigger is boredom. Some is lonely. Some is frustration. Some is unhappiness. Some is, you know, anger towards others. And that emotional state makes you liable. You know, 14, apologize. When you start to realize that the addictive patterns of your life have hurt other people, it's really good just to face it. Part of the healing is just a greater part of your journey is as you realize the scope and the extent of the impact of your addiction on those around you. People have been caught in the vortex of your selfish thinking and acting and responsible life. God's plan is that we make amends with other people and apologize, and that does help establish freedom. And that's all part of the 12-step program, so I'm not saying anything new, but we realize that the neurological pathways that have been deeply entrenched have not just impacted me, they've impacted people in my world. The new norm. Okay, so here's where we're going. I can't think anymore. You know, I often call it stinking thinking, but my worldview has been twisted by my addiction. How I had lived in my addiction was once normalized, sometimes internally justified, made right in my own mind. And that, you know, we continue to fire the addiction pattern because, well, that's just, you know, it became your truth. It became your rationale. And so, so correct the stinking thinking. 16, God's truth. So part of the neurological refiring and rebooting, and this is the be not conformed to this world, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I like to challenge people to wear your Bible out. A life commitment. You know, this is not a 12-step timeline for completion. It is, I'm actually in the book of Numbers right now, and I have my Bible here, and just as a witness to it, there is not a place in this Bible that I haven't been on, and I've put notes and marked, and every time I get a new Bible, my goal is to be on every page of that Bible and leave footprints that have been there, that verse made sense, or this verse made sense, and you know, you can see the highlighted and writing in the margin. Well, that's not just on a few of my favorite verses. That's every page of the Bible. Well, I mean, you know, you can see that, and that's not bragging. That's just about how this works. It goes right back to when I was in grade 11 and I just gave my life forward to the Lord. I made a decision that I was going to read my Bible every day, and I know that reading my Bible pretty consistently. I obviously have missed scores of times, but you know, the habit of my life is to read a minimum of a chapter a day, and you know, keep going, and that has anchored me. That's changed my life, and you know, I have to buy new Bibles because, you know, in this one here, there's pages that if I'm not careful, they'll actually come out, because over time the binding wears out, and you know, you can see the worn edges. So that's what we're talking about. And you know, I mean, one of the greatest treasures, I asked my my sister and brother if they wouldn't mind if I had my dad and my mom's Bibles once, you know, they're gone. And so I was fortunate to have Ken and Dorothy's Bibles, and I just, their life is transformed. They reflect Jesus by the depth of their own walk with the Lord around the Bible. I like to say that a Bible that is falling apart belongs to someone who isn't. That means you wear it out and it'll be a good thing. And so, yeah. And so that's a life commitment. That's not just, okay, well, while I'm doing my recovery, I'll be reading my Bible because that's a good thing. It's a great thing, but it's not just for recovery. It's for life. Recovery truth. Beyond the 12-step program, which you need to work through, I commend it highly. You need to really read, listen to all kinds of recovery teaching and encouragement. Just continue to learn and grow and gain any kind of input to gain strength in the recovery journey. So the recovery truth, 12-step program is a minimum. And then, videos, like if you miss a regroup, take the half hour or so to listen to the talk you missed and just keep growing if you have to miss one. And if you're newer to the group and maybe only been around 2 or 3 months, you understand that there's, I don't know what it is now, say 130 or 40 recovery talks, teaching talks like this, some with other men who've done the talks. They're recorded and they're there too. So there's no end to great truth just on our website, let alone other great websites that will give you wonderful teaching about recovery. And number 18, stay the course. Renewing of your mind, building new neurological pathways. This has been my experience as I worked with a lot of people. This is not documented, although Dr. Weiss would have similar thinking, but a minimum of 18 months to stop the acting out, the behavioral change. That's going to take some work to get you there, but 2 to 3 years to really get inner renewal, to really deal with the stuff behind just not acting out, but the why, and the renewing your mind, and the changing of you, the person, is a 2 to 3 year process. As far as the addiction, I'm on a long journey with Jesus of him changing me. And if me getting my life straight with God and really everything dealt with in my life is key before I die, I could live forever, because I still need Jesus in my life every day. Matter of fact, the longer I've been a Christian, the more I realize I really need Jesus every day. I want my life to count. I want my life to be encouragement to other people. I ask God to lead me to people every day that I need to speak a word of encouragement to, whether it was last night with our longtime friends that we haven't seen for a long time, and they're from out of town, and just praying with them, or just someone visiting their home, and we just, Donald and I, put our arms around them and pray for them because they opened up about their hurts. Be a wrecking ball for God, that tears down strongholds and gives people God's truth. Just may the Lord take you from just renewed and not being addicted, but for being ambassador of change and encouragement to other people. So there's some of the implications of neuroscience on addiction recovery, and why some of the things that we encourage you to do actually have roots in how God has wired us. And the beautiful thing is, we use the word rewired for a reason, because God says, yeah, you're on a bad path. We can change that. You can be rewired. And that's the beauty of neuroplasticity, and the fact that the brain can learn new ways of operating. And that's the course of recovery, gentlemen. That's the course of recovery. Women who are going to listen to this, it's for all of us. So God bless you as you consider where you're at in this understanding of the neuroscience and your recovery and God's plan for you. So let's talk about it.